Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name is Invin and today I wanted to bring you guys a video on the future of New World, what we could potentially be seeing going forward based off some tips that we've seen from some of the videos that they've released recently. So yesterday, New World officially uploaded a video that was 6 minutes long, which is what you'll see in the background of today's video, which was about the cultures that they intend to add and have already added in Ebonscale's Reach and other parts of the zones in New World and Aeternum. And we also saw a Twitter post which was containing information on similar subjects. So going off this strain along with some of the lore, I wanted to talk about what we could potentially see in the future of New World going forward, some ideas that I've got already and some things that make sense with what we've been told kind of through hinters and little pointers in these videos. So without further ado, we're going to jump into it here, and like I said there, they were focusing on Ebonscale Reach in these videos, and what they were talking about was essentially the architecture that they've focused on, with it being a Chinese themed zone, with all of those buildings being in the right shape, making sure that the Empress, all of the moves are in kind of traditional Chinese dance and kung fu moves when she does different attacks and things, which is a really cool aspect to the game, and it opens up the doors for a lot of possibilities. They talked about how they wanted to make each zone unique, and with Ebonscale being one of their first very different zones to the rest of Aeternum, they've spent a lot of time researching and making this, which has led me to believe that there could be a good amount of room for some other things that we've seen here. So we've seen some influence from maybe classical Rome already into the game, and we've also seen some influence from things maybe such as Greek mythology. But what will be really interesting is going forward, what other influences we might be able to see. Well, as we know already from some of the lore and of course some sort of leak type things, but mainly through, if you're reading through the lore documents in the game, there is references to a sand land area. Now this means that there's more than likely going to be a desert zone, so we could see a classical Egyptian theme here, or Egyptian mythology brought in with that. So that could be a really cool idea, sort of ancient Egypt with, you know, pharaohs and that kind of thing. Maybe that's something we could see here. There's also the possibility going forward that we could see things like Vikings or Norse mythology added in, Greek mythology, all types of different classical cultures and civilizations that could be on Aeternum. Now this is really interesting because what they've said is that they're planning to add in different versions, and there's lots of different people who have traveled here, so this gives rise for tons and tons of expansive content going forward that could be, you know, potentially certain people invading at different points, which would bring a whole new era to the map. You could have different points of exploration that once you've completed part of the story and finish the main story quest as it is now, maybe that then leads on to another section of the game, which then opens up, which actually is that you find out some information following on from finishing that story, which leads you to a new part of Aeternum that you didn't know was there. And so there's a huge potential for so much content, which is absolutely fantastic. Fills me with a lot of confidence for this game, that they've got an immense amount of stuff that they could do, and probably look like they are doing as well, because in this video there's lots of comments from game directors, artists that are working on New World, script writers, producers, all sorts of types of people that are working on the game, and they all had some very cool things to say about it. I would highly recommend you guys watch the video if you haven't done so. I will leave it linked in the description of this video as well, so you can go and have a look at it, but it's really cool. Now what this means for the future of the game in terms of what we'll actually see content wise, well, we've already got confirmed at the end of Gamescom that we are looking to see seasonal events. Now if I had to make a guess at that, I would assume that Christmas is going to be a good time. Potentially other cultural things like Chinese New Year could be added in, and that kind of thing. Potentially ones before and after that as well, but that's just kind of like a main one that I thought of they could make a big change for in time when the game's released. So that's something very cool that we need to watch out for, and that could be really cool, as I say there, if they're adding in different events from different cultures, all of which fit in with potentially stuff that we'll see later on in the game or very soon in the game. Who knows how quick these expansions and sort of extra places are going to be added, but this is a really cool insight into the way that the development of this game is going to go. The fact that we haven't even got the official release actually over and done with yet, and the game studio itself is releasing videos talking about architecture and different samples of ideas that they're going to be taking from different civilizations and different nations and what they would do traditionally. They're trying to make it traditionally and true and kind of, you know, relative to what it actually would have been like to the best of their ability, and they're talking about this in an open sense in terms terms of they're saying that's what they want to work towards, that's what they have been working towards with Ebonscale Reach and other places in Aeternum. So this is really, really cool, and it could open the door to a vast amount of other expansions, other civilizations, other types of people that we might see throughout the world in New World. And like we already know in Aeternum, we have people like the Ancients who seem to have kind of been on the Aeternum island seemingly forever. You know, they're the first type of people that we've got there that have built these big monuments everywhere. So as well as having, you know, some reference to real life or mythical civilizations, we actually could see some, you know, original or made up civilizations enter New World and Aeternum and maybe change the force of the battle as well. So there's all this supernatural element to it too, where we could see different types of people added in through their own creativity. So there's a whole bunch and a whole host of things that could be added here, which seems really, really cool. Now, something that I really wanted to touch on that they were sort of kind of making a big emphasis on was obviously the building types, the way that the zone plays out, the enemies, and obviously the boss there, talking about the Empress, how they incorporated different traditional Chinese dance and kung fu moves into some of the abilities that the Empress uses when you're fighting her, which is a very cool idea. Now, going forward, we could see some really interesting stuff like I mentioned there with Vikings and Norse mythology. That is something I would really like to see. I think also classical Rome, touching on that a little bit more. Obviously, we've seen some sort of soldiers with almost Roman shields and spears in kind of some of the footage, but maybe expanding on that a little bit more would be cool. Like I mentioned there as well, obviously we know that we've got a sand zone entering the game fairly soon-ish through all of the lore readings and stuff that was available in the betas and alphas, and those papers lead us to believe that it's going to be a sand zone. So in that area, could we see Egyptian mythology or something along those lines, or is it going to be something entirely new to Aeternum? We don't know this at this point, but it's looking very, very promising, and I think it's a very cool idea and very cool expansion progression that we could end up seeing in New World, you know, a few months down the line, a year into the future, 2 years in, because obviously right now we're all thinking about the launch and what's happening right now in the game, but obviously the longevity of it is going to be these expansions, and I really like the direction that they seem to be heading in with this. It seems very fluid, like they've got so many different options that they could do, you know, seemingly endless amounts of content with, because they've got all these different civilizations that were real or that history is based upon. Then you've got things that you could make up as well, and you could have different conflicts between these factions and civilizations. Now, another thing to mention here that they really touched on when they were mentioning things about the Empress and Ebonscale Reach. So the idea behind this is that her half-brother took the throne from her, so she went into voluntary exile in search of power, which is how she ended up on Aeternum. When she got there, her and her followers gained power through the Corrupted, and that is why we now fight her in that Corrupted zone in that endgame dungeon. Now, that's a really cool aspect to it, but also they mentioned that she was rebuilding ships. In the expedition itself, you will see a section where you go and fight this harbour, where there's hordes of enemies rebuilding these ships. Now, this could lead potentially onto naval combat. We could see an expedition where we go into the water, onto these ships to fight them if they manage to successfully get off the island here. Maybe not at the point where the expedition ends, because obviously if we win that, we don't let them get away with it, right? But maybe potentially in the future they rebuild, or there's another civilization doing a similar thing. And this is a really cool addition because it opens up the possibility for traveling to different islands, you know, jotted around Aeternum that are still linked, completely different islands altogether from Aeternum itself. Maybe there's other realms out there that have kind of linked into this supernatural fictional world. And of course it leads for the possibility of naval combat, different regions, and who knows if there's going to be any sort of dimensional thing when we do get there as well, because maybe it's something where Aeternum's in a time loop, right? Because you've got all these different civilizations from all over the place, all kind of stuck on one island, and then you've also got the players who are now here, which, depending on where we come from in terms of the timeline, maybe we're a few thousand years later on, or behind indeed. So this could be an interesting factor that we play into as well, and get a huge amount of cool stuff coming in the future, and I'm super excited for it. The reason I made this video is I want to kind of chat it through with you guys. I want to see what you all think of all these videos and what we could see progression wise in the future, because it's a really interesting subject. There's so much stuff that could happen, and so much stuff that they've kind of hinted at, like I've mentioned throughout the video here, that sounds exceptionally cool. So let me know in the comments what you think we could see in the very near future. One other thing I wanted to touch on towards the end of the video here as well is the potential for adding extra expeditions and main story quests as we go through. So even if we don't see a zone expansion, as it were, in the first couple of months, something that we could see in the very near future of the game is extra expeditions, extra main story quest lines that lead us there, that kind of build up towards this new zone. And I think that would be a very cool idea, particularly, like like they say there, if they're going to add in certain different things as we're going through the game and through the game's progression of its life, what we should see is some cool build-up quests. So we're going to be keeping eyes peeled for that in the lore as well when we do get access to those 45 to 60 quests. I don't know if anybody actually managed to do those in the open beta. So what we're going to do there is obviously keep an eye on the lore when it does come through and we get all of that information through doing those quests, what we can actually kind of decipher from that, because there should be a lot of cool hidden clues in there. So that's something I'll definitely pick up on when we do manage to get through that in the game as well, or somebody else does and kind of summarizes it for us. We can pick up on that and see where we think we're going to go with in terms of expansions and, you know, content coming soon to the game, because I think that's going to be really, really cool. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. It's a bit more of a conversational kind of like almost talking about things that we've had hinted at us in these recent videos, and it's something that I found really, really cool. I was super excited when I saw these videos. They were very well made, and the stuff they were talking about, like I've mentioned throughout this video, is very, very exciting. We should be seeing some really, really interesting things coming very soon, so keep eyes peeled for that. As always, I will bring you any news updates that we do get, but hopefully you found this video useful, informative, and kind of, you know, a bit of fun, something a bit different to kind of talk about things we could be seeing in the future. Obviously backed up with the fact of what they've said in the videos there as well. Now, if you have enjoyed today's video, please do me a favor and drop a like on the video down below, as it really does help me out. If you are new to the channel, then please drop a subscribe as well if you'd like to see more New World content. We're posting every single day, so it'd be great to have you guys here as part of that community. If you would like to join the Discord, the link for that will be in the description and in the comments below. We're up to almost 400 members on the Discord now, which is amazing. We've got tons of people over there chatting all things New World, so if you'd like to get involved, we'd love to have you. Go ahead and join through one of those links. And if you would like to support me directly here on YouTube, you can click the join button down below underneath this video, which will give you the options we have available for memberships here on the channel as well. Other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, guys. Take care and peace.